And I guess everything's a similar question. In this, I'm just feeling more in alignment and tuned more often, and I want to know more about receiving thoughts from broader perspective, because I have these ideas, I guess, and I don't know necessarily, like, you have a spiritual guides. I've researched a lot of alien stuff, and so like that consciousness, and then there's all these other consciousnesses, and then there's source, and I feel like my path began with source and praying to God and to feeling God. And now all of this is like, I don't know if there's boundaries. And then, there's this feeling and sense.
There don't need to be any.
I guess there don't.
There don't need to be any, because on the path of least resistance, we talked about this at the beginning of the day. This path of least resistance, and the reason that we direct the energy so that Esther chooses those words instead of path of most allowance, she chooses the words path of least resistance, because we want it to be all right with you that you and only you have thrown some resistance on your trail. We want that to be all right with you. And we want it to be all right with you that you've thrown resistance on your trail, and that the source within you knows where it all is and is guiding you around it, over and under it and through it and around it. And so it's all right that it's there, because it's known and understood from broader perspective. It's like looking for something that's lost and then getting an idea to look for something else that isn't lost. And when you find the thing that isn't lost, you find the thing that was lost too, because they were in the same place. But if you were looking for the thing that was lost, you wouldn't have been able to find it, because your belief that it was lost was keeping you from the impulse that would lead you to it. But now you get an idea from source, because source knows where what you think is lost is. It's not lost to source, but source knows that you think it's lost. So if source tells you where it is, you're going to block it because you think it's lost. So source gives you the impulse to look for something that you're not worried about. And when you look for something that you're not worried about, you find it, and there's what you want that you thought was lost right next to it. We're going to keep saying that to you until you really hear it. In other words, do you get that? And so that's what that path of least resistance is. The path of least resistance means source knows who you are and loves you. Source knows where you are and thinks it's great. Source knows where you are in relationship to where you want to be and knows exactly how to lead you there. So the path of least resistance is you just chilling out and following the impulses, not judging them, not second guessing them, not even really talking that much to others about them who aren't going to get it.
Yeah.
Just follow your impulse for the pleasure that is ready for you. Yeah.
And so maybe I'm looking for a definition of source, or narrowing it down too much. Like, I know there's all these non-physical guides helping us in every moment.
Before we can have a conversation that you can feel an answer to that question, how to define source, we have to have a conversation about the resistance on the trail, because source is everywhere on the trail. Sometimes source is going to be represented by just a friendly meeting of eyes on a street. Sometimes a bird is going to come and land right on your windowsill and is going to represent source. Sometimes a thought is going to waft across your mind, and when it does, a corresponding emotion of elation is going to come with it. Those are all source experiences. Sometimes you're going to watch a movie, and the only thing you're going to take away from it is something that source knew you wanted to know. There's no way of defining source, because source is omnipresent. The way we want to define source, we don't want to tell you where or who. We want to define source in emotional terms, because source is always presenting to you. When you are allowing source, you could feel any of these emotions. Any of these emotions. Relief. Source is always an improved emotion.
So source is, it's the movement. It's not an actual
So
emotion.
if you are feeling resentful, source is the feeling of frustration, because it's a path of least resistance. Oh, you thought source was always up here. Source is right there where you are, leading you along your path of least resistance.
So source is just contrast.
Source is improvement in the way you feel. Source is calling you home to who you really are, to who you have caused yourself to become. Ooh, this is a really good conversation.
Source it's the movement. Source is the creation of the movement from where I am to my desire.
Yeah, your recognition of source is your improvement in the way you feel. So it's always bringing a little relief. And of course, at first it's a little relief, but once it gets rolling, then it's ecstasy, then it's passion, then it's enthusiasm, then it's friskiness. It's always an improvement. So source is always present with you, even in what you think are your darkest moments. Because source never doesn't care. Source never focuses away from you. Always there. You've just got to be aware that it is, and then take the best clue that you're capable of taking from where you stand, and feel as good about picking up that clue as source is about being there for you to receive it. That was a good conversation.